Dear Lord, thank you for letting us gather today to contemplate and discuss items from our community and our county. Please bless those that protect us locally and worldwide. For those that give their lives, we really need to stop and ponder that dedication that they have. In your name we pray. Amen. If you'll follow me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, do we have any committee or legislative reports? Oh, I'm sorry. Let's see, we need to go motion for executive session at 9 a.m. Next meeting.
Second.
We have a motion second for executive session for the next meeting. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, motion carried. Committee or legislative reports? Supervisor Johnson, do you have a report today?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. We had a critical infrastructure and cyber security meeting. It focused on critical infrastructure within local government that can be susceptible to cyber threats. The first person to speak on the topic was Elisa Kaiser. She's the standards chief for the Industrial Control System Security, ICS CERT, which is a branch under the Department of Homeland Security. She spoke on the Industrial Control System, ICS, and how they relate to cybersecurity. She first went over what ICS is. The term ICS refers to a broad set of control systems which can include anything from cyber physical systems, supervisory control and data acquisition, distributed control systems, process control systems, energy management systems, automated systems, and any other automated control system one could think of. ICS are controlled by some basic system features such as sensors, motor controls, or valves. They're usually controlled remotely at a control center through wireless communication protocols. Traditionally, ICS were isolated. This means that they have no access to the outside world via the internet. While some business networks back in the old days had their servers, internets ready, nearly all business kept their control systems separate. Nowadays, that has all changed. With the Ethernet everywhere and everything going wireless, remote configuration of these devices is through connectivity that connects to the World Wide Web. From a cybersecurity standpoint, this system is a huge challenge because it is readily exploitable to everyone in the world. There are risk factors associated with modernization and globalization of ICS. First off, the connection between the information technology and control system networks leaves rooms for inherent vulnerabilities. There's been a shift from isolated systems to open protocol, which means remote sites are now accessed through the use of modems and wireless networks that are both private and public. There's also concerns that some of the ICS are now being shared and jointly used for e-commerce purposes. While this may be a good business strategy, it leaves the door open for many liabilities. Some challenges the new method of ICS are facing today are it can be difficult to deploy antivirus and mobile code countermeasures. The support technology lifetime is upwards to 20+ years. Application patches for ICS, which made them susceptible to hackers, is an extremely slow process. Change management is unsuitable for modern security. These systems have to be available 24/7 every day of the year. Security awareness is usually poor inside the control zone. Due to these challenges, hackers have started to pay attention to the ICS vulnerabilities. Hackers are developing interest, particularly in the SCADA system. Even with no background in control systems, these hackers are still looking at them and finding ways to crack them. She also mentioned that businesses that have internet-facing control systems should really think twice. Feels that it's one of the worst ideas. She says these systems try to locate control system networks and remote devices behind firewalls with improperly configured rules. Default passwords are bad. Google dorks can find embedded systems from as early as 2010. Today, there are 98,000 interfacing devices all susceptible to cyber attacks. She went over the 2012 Susnik attack and what we learned from it. In October of 2012, a U.S. power utility contacted ICERT to report a virus infection in a turbine control system which had impacted approximately 10 computers. What had happened was that a third-party technician used a UCB drive to upload software during a scheduled outage for equipment upgrades. The USB drive was infected with the Mariposa virus. The infection resulted in downtime for the system and delayed the plant restart by approximately 3 weeks. The lessons learned were develop and implement baseline security policies, maintain up-to-date antivirus definitions, manage system patching, govern the use of removable media, manage the subcontractors. Lastly, she went over what the organization is. Their mission is to assist critical infrastructure asset owners to reduce the risk of impacts from cyber attacks and events by assisting them to improve their cybersecurity defense posture and respond to incidents and emerging threats or vulnerabilities. It does control system assessments on other systems. They can do a one-day assessment or take it a step further to do a design architect review, which will usually take 2 to 3 days to complete. It includes a robust architecture analysis of our system and a network design review. They can also do more drawn-out processes. Ralph Johnson from King County, Washington also spoke. He started off by telling us why information security is critical. He stated that internet users keep increasing with the projected population. He suspects there will be 3 billion internet users by the year 2015, which would be more than 40% of the world's projected population. There are more than 15 billion network connections via devices currently, which is enough for more than 2 connections for each person on Earth. Ralph explained the 2 types of controls when it comes to information technology. They are non-technical controls and technical controls. Non-technical controls include policy, efforts, practices, designs, laws, regulation, incident response, and collaboration with other jurisdictions. Some technical controls are the firewalls, intrusion detection, system monitoring, antivirus software, and encryption of devices. They went over the critical sectors of our infrastructure. The first one is the chemical sectors. This sector can be divided into 5 main segments based on end programming, which could be anything from basic chemicals, specialty chemicals, pharmaceuticals, and consumer programs. Cyber attack on this section would be both economically devastating but also could be a major health concern. Commercial facility sectors can also be a prime target for cyber attacks. These include public assemblies such as arenas and stadiums, sport leagues, lodging, hotels and motels, entertainment, media venues, real estate, retail, shopping, or outlet malls. Communications sector was next. This sector is critical to everyday lives as it provides an enabling function across all critical infrastructure sectors. They include satellite, wireless, and wireline. Another vulnerability sector is a critical manufacturing, one of which steel mills, machine manufacturing, electrical equipment, transportation equipment, etc. Dams are another sector also mentioned. There are over 82,000 human-made dams in the U.S. today. This is a critical infrastructure, but not only acts as a barrier, but also is home to industrial waste impoundments and water retention and water control facilities. The defense industry-based sector is a worldwide industrial complex that enables research and development as well as production, delivery, and maintenance of military weapons systems and subsystems. This would be a prime target for hackers as it is placed in charge of making U.S. military requirements. The nation's first line of defense in the prevention and mitigation of risk from terrorist attacks, man-made incidents, natural disasters is the emergency services sector. This sector serves as a primary protector for all critical infrastructure sectors encompassing a wide range of emergency response function. Their primary mission is to save lives, protect property and environment, assist communities impacted by disaster, and aid in recovery. The emergency sector can be broken into 5 disciplines: law enforcement, fire and emergency management, emergency medical services, and public works. The energy sector is broken down into 3 interrelated segments: electricity, petroleum, and natural gas. This sector fuels our economy of the 21st century. Without a stable energy supply, health and welfare are threatened, and the U.S. economy cannot function. With more than 80% of this sector is privately owned, it provides an enabling function across all critical infrastructure sectors. The financial sector also provides a broad array of products from the largest institutions with assets greater than $1 trillion to the smallest community bank and credit union. This sector is critical to how we live today by allowing customers to deposit funds, make payments to other parties, provide credit and liquidity to customers, and also to invest. In the United States, there are 2.2 million farms, 900,000 restaurants, and more than 400,000 registered food manufacturing, processing, and storage facilities. Because of this, the food and agricultural sector is extremely important. It is also entirely privately owned and accounts for roughly 1/5 of our nation's economic activity. Now, the government owns a wide variety of infrastructure through a variety of buildings located in the U.S. and overseas, and they're either owned or leased by the federal, state, local, and tribal governments. Two subsectors to this would be the education facilities subsector, the national monuments and icons subsector. The healthcare and public health sectors protects all sectors in the economy from hazards such as terrorism, infectious disease outbreak, and natural disasters. This sector is mostly privately owned and operated in all 50 states. It plays a significant role in response and recovery all across the United States. The nation's transportation system moves foods and goods through the country and overseas, making it another prime target for cyber attacks. There are 7 key subsectors or modes of transportation in the U.S.: aviation, highway infrastructure and motor carrier, maritime transportation, mass transit and passenger rail, pipelines, freight rail, postal and shipping. Lastly, the water and wastewater system sector services approximately 160,000 public drinking water systems and more than 16,000 publicly owned wastewater treatment systems in the U.S. This sector is vulnerable to a variety of attacks ranging from contamination with deadly agents, physical attacks such as release of toxic gases and chemicals, and cyber. Ended by talking about the information technology sector. In this sector, businesses, governments, academia, and private citizens are increasingly becoming dependent upon technology. These virtual and distributed functions produce and provide hardware, software, information, services, and access to the Internet. They are operated by a variety of entities. While information technology infrastructure has a certain level of inherent resilience, its interdependent and interconnected structure presents challenges as well as opportunities for coordinating public and private sector preparedness and protecting activities. That's all, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you for your report, Supervisor Johnson. Anyone else wishing to make a report? Seeing none. County Administrator's report.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. I have no report today, but I would like to point out that thanks to IT and to Public Works and the sign shop, we have a new seal above your head, and it looks very nice. Thank you.
Thank you. And thanks to all those who are involved in that project. It's very nice this morning. Next item we have is the approval of the August 9th, September 3rd special meetings. Board minutes for approval.
Move to approve.
I have a motion. I'll second the motion. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carried. Next item we have is the call to the public. And as of this morning, I have no one signed up for call to the public, but I will recognize anyone that has that wish. There being none, we'll move on now then to the consent agenda. The following items are listed under the consent agenda, be considered as a group, acted upon as one motion with no separate discussion or said items, unless a board member so requests. In that event, the item will be removed from the consent agenda for separate discussion and action. Do we have any supervisor with items that would like to remove from the consent agenda? I have item 12 to remove. Supervisor Johnson?
No.
Supervisor Angus?
No, sir.
Supervisor Brotherton?
No, sir.
Supervisor Moss?
Nothing.
Okay. Would entertain a motion then to approve items 5 through 37 with the exception of item number 12.
So moved.
We have a motion. I'll second that motion. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carried. Item number 12. Motion for discussion.
Second.
Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carried. Item number 12, the adoption board resolution number 2013-151 is an extension of time for rezone of property in the I-40 and Highway 93 area. We have 4 people signed up to speak to that item today. Mr. Lutinsky, would you like to speak to this item first?
Good morning.
Good morning. If you'll please state your name and address for the record.
My name is John Lutensky, and I live at 11290 East Sand River Ranch Road in Kingman, 86401. I would like to say that my neighbors and I are not against progress. The area we moved into years ago, me being almost 30 years, it was agricultural residential. I believe in preventive medicine, and I would like the board to practice preventive zoning. And by that I mean, does the rezoner or the extensioner, whatever you want to call the individuals, do they have a track record? If the business failed before, how did he or she leave the area? I mean, you've got to look at something. You can't just blanket or arbitrarily rezone or extend zoning situations, especially in an agriculture residential area. You can see the city of Kingman with the gravel pits for parking lots of businesses that have folded. The owners have let the business just go to pot or potholes or boarded windows or become gathering places for dubious individuals in the back of their stores or property. What can we expect with our area being rezoned or renewed or extended? What is progress? Do we have a situation where people are getting rezoned and start fishing for someone to come in and save their money problems or their business acumen? You know, what's going on? Are they rezoning for the good of the area, or are they looking for a fast buck at the expense of the area? I don't think anybody here living in town or in a rural area would like a gravel pit opened up next to them or a cement plant that's going to run those boilers at 3 in the morning to get it ready for the trucks to come in at 5 or 6. If the business fails, what recourse does the neighborhood have? The board and the zoners, PZ, don't live there and don't have to live with any bad decisions. So I would ask you, please consider carefully your decisions to rezone, renew, extend, to take into consideration what you're doing. Would you like it next to you? Or if it fails, that's really important. You want a 400-foot tower next to your house, or fumes or residue of a battery plant that failed, or wire stripping plant where they're melting wire, or for some reason they put in a 10-inch well casing and drop all the water in the area down below 1,200 feet? I think blanket renews or extensions should be looked at a little more carefully in our county nowadays with the business and as bad as it is. So thank you for consideration, and I appreciate you listening. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lutensky. Next item we have signed up to speak this morning is Mr. Wayne Smith.
Chairman Watson, Board of Supervisors, my name is Wayne Smith. I live at 2752 South Cali Marco Way, Kingman, Arizona, 86401. The extension of time for a rezone of this resolution is a catch-22 for me. I want growth just as much as the rest of the neighborhood, but it seems this extension is just a fishing expedition. They have no real idea what they're going to catch. There is no real plan. Sometimes you get a gut feeling on something. Maybe in this case, it comes from the history of this group and something known as Silverado, or a solar plant that would have used outdated technology and a tremendous amount of our groundwater. This has created a huge trust issue between this group and the neighborhood. So this is why I'm asking you to put some extra thought into this extension. In speaking with my neighbors, the same question always arises, and I don't have the answer, so I'm going to ask you. How can Mohave County approve anything from this group until they make them tear down one of Mohave County's largest eyesores known as Silverado Estates, which I have a picture of a couple of homes. And the last little question is, the resolution states both sides of Highway 93 between Hidden Valley and Hackberry Road. Why is it there was no posting of this extension of time on Hidden Valley? Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Patty Walrod.
Good morning. My name is Patty Walrod. I live at Windmill Ranch at 5661 South Mountain Lion Road, Kingman, Arizona, 86401. My husband and I purchased the property in 1999, and we became permanent residents here in 2005. We looked down on the old Kofor Ranch headquarters in Silverado from our living room. On moving to Kingman in 2005, one of the first things that I did was become involved with the Highway 93 corridor plan. We worked for 23 months on the plan with Kevin Davidson. While we weren't enthralled with the idea of a massive development at Silverado, we respected Mr. Horner's rights as a property owner to develop the property within the zoning limits approved by you. We were shocked, therefore, when 23 months of work, we found out that Mr. Horner did not consider our rights at all when he proposed, and you approved, the solar project in direct conflict with the area plan that we had worked on for so long. Mr. Horner has never reached out to the community, the neighbors, or concerned stakeholders. So therefore, this morning we would like to tell you what we would have liked to have told him. Before considering any extension, we would like you to require, at minimum, that he remove the model homes that he built without permit and that have become a blight on the land. We who live in the area consider ourselves stewards of the land. Mr. Horner considers it an asset on a ledger sheet. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Ranson Walrod? Thank you, sir. I have a question for Developmental Services on this item. I believe, is this the third extension, Christine?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, this will be the third extension of time.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Certainly. Supervisor Angus?
As these homeowners spoke about, what is the policy about abandoned, these model homes that are sitting there abandoned? What happens to them?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Supervisor Angus, the homes that were built as part of Silverado were actually built on another piece of property other than this rezone. In such cases, the homes as they stand right now, most of them are not permitted. We did receive permit applications for a few of them. I cannot tell you at this time whether those were ever, the permits were ever issued. Since they are not permitted and they are not, at this time, I don't believe any of them are livable. They would probably be considered dangerous buildings. The applicant does have a rezone approved for the area where those houses are established for a solar plant. And part of the condition of the solar plant in establishing that is that the houses had to come down and the subdivision they were associated with abandoned. The solar plant never went through, the applicant never removed the houses.
I'd like to add a little bit more to that. I believe that rezone comes up next year, is that correct?
Mr. Watson, members of the board, I'm not sure exactly when it comes up, but it is in the near future.
Right, I believe it is next year. And it was part and parcel of that agreement that those buildings would be taken down as part of that agreement. So I believe that we can probably broach that subject when that comes up for rezone. Any other questions for
Another question, Mr. Chairman, if you may?
Supervisor Johnson?
Ms. Ballard, this started in 2003?
Mr. Johnson, members of the board, I'm not sure exactly what date that the applicant originally came forward for the I take that back, I do know what date. The Board of Supervisors first approved this rezone on September 2nd, 2003 via BOS Resolution 2003-311.
In that time, we always put down things that actions we want to see them do or obtain during that's why we give them that period of time. Have they done all of those actions that are required of them?
On the subject parcel that's before the board today, the applicant claims to have filed a parcel plat, which indeed was recorded. That has been completed. And they have as well done some work on an access road. Due to economic, as the applicant states, due to economic conditions, their clients have been unable to complete the project. And the purpose of the extension of time, of course, is to complete those other items.
So in 10 years, they still haven't completed the original ones yet?
In 10 years, they have not developed the parcel for the purpose for which it was rezoned.
Thank you. That's all, Mr. Chairman.
Any further questions of Ms. Ballard? There being none, I'll propose a motion that we do not accept this extension for the time for the rezone. And I make that motion for several reasons. Number one, it's been 10 years since this has been proposed. Certainly that there have been a number of changes in that area that should be readdressed. So with that, I'll make a motion that we do not accept this re-extension.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Anyone in the audience wishing to discuss this? There being none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, motion carried. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for coming today. Item number 38. This is under the public hearing portion. So we'll open the public hearing for the discussion, possible action for the adoption of Board of Resolution number 2013-159 for the rezone of assessor's parcel number 324-25-298 and parcel 324-25-299 from a RO single family residence manufactured home prohibited zone to a zone medium density residential to allow for development of disability daycare center in the Kingman vicinity. It's the northeast corner of East College Circle and North College Drive. In Mohave County, the commission recommended approval by a vote of 6-2 with the added requirement that the parking be approved as a daycare center. I need to probably also indicate that this item has been protested by over 61% of the homeowners in the area, and any motion to be successful would have to have a supermajority.
I have a question.
Supervisor?
Do we have a copy of the petition are these homeowners, the 51% that we're talking about? I don't see anything in the backup material here.
I don't have those in my packet.
I'm not sure that, are all of them homeowners, or are they renters, or?
You have a lady that wants to address you out there.
Ms. Ballard?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, there were a number of letters that were sent, and my packet does contain those, so I'm not quite sure. We will certainly get those to the board. I'm not quite sure where between our office and your office those letters may have gotten misplaced. The Development Services Department has gone through all of the letters received and all of the comments. We also received comments during the Planning and Zoning Commission's hearing. We have gone through all of the individuals who either protested via written statement or protested at the commission's hearing, and verified that they were indeed property owners within that 300-foot zoning area as the state statute defines. The numbers we came up for objection were 61% of the property owners. Those property owners represented approximately 59% of the land area within that 300 feet.
Thank you, Ms. Ballard. Any further questions, Ms.
No.
Ballard?
I have a question over Ms.
Supervisor
Ballard.
Johnson?
Ms. Ballard, how long has this operation been going on, this location?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Mr. Johnson, the department actually does not have a record of when the particular operation in question began. The applicant tells us that he has been there for approximately 10 years.
Thank you.
Any further questions of Ms. Ballard? Okay. There being none, we have a number of people that are signed up to speak to this issue. We're still in the mode for the public hearing, so. Steve Niedinger? Niedinger. Thank you, sir. Sorry for the,
Chairman of the Board, Supervisors, thank you for this opportunity. My name is Stephen Neidlinger, and I live at 900 South Leanna Place in Golden Valley, 86409, or excuse me, 86413. We have been in business since 2002. We moved into this location in 2003. If I thought, I would have brought my first health and safety inspection to verify the length of time. We're under constant scrutiny by the state, and the employees that we have go through an extensive background check. We've been serving people, we've served over 120 people at this location in our day program. Currently, we're down to 14, and we've cut back to 16. We were up to 20. So, that being said, we'll reduce the amount of need for parking. I have here a memo going out to all the employees. Now, we do have a problem on payday. Everybody shows up for payday, and that is a parking problem. So what we've done is we've changed the location where people get paid to our store that's over on Northern and Banks. I've sent out memos to all the parents and the employees to avoid going down and driving through the cul-de-sac and drop people off in front of our 4769 Drive building. That should alleviate that problem. I can't guarantee nobody's going to go down the street. I have a complaint form. To date, I've never received one of these. These go directly to our board. And they make whatever recommendations they need to. I've never received one of these from anybody. I would love to. It'd help fix whatever's problem. The thing is, I've been in this area, oh gosh, since '91. In that time, I've been involved with programs that have 5 different programs that were in houses. Never had a complaint, any of them. Right now in Kingman, we have 4 in the area, 3 of which are in houses. None of them had complaints until now. So whatever it takes to rectify the situation, I'm willing to work with anybody. But I would choose to be there. We've got roots in the neighborhood for 10 years. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Bill Abbott?
My name is Bill Abbott. I live at 1603 West Jordan Ranch Road in Kingman. I am the owner. I am the applicant, even though Steve did all this work because and I'd like to wait until I address the questions or the rumors that I know are going around about parking, and there's a possible 7-Eleven store going to go in if this change happens and so forth. So could I wait until later to address those?
Certainly.
Thank you.
Tom Young?
My name is Tom Young. I live at 4755 North College Circle. It's Kingman, Arizona. We've got some misunderstanding somewhere. I know as much about this as anybody, and I'd never heard anything about a 7-Eleven or anything else. As far as the percentage of signatures, we were just a little bit short on time. I think this thing started about 3 months before we got our letter. But according to the planning board, they kept finagling this back and forth until Mr. Abbott could get his stuff done. So therefore, we only had about 3 weeks. And another thing, as far as another thing about the signatures, we had to send out like 21 letters because there's 21 homeowners that live other places. 5 of them, of course, really didn't much care anything about it. They don't live there. They don't much care. I was surprised we got 16 of them back. So we was told that the renters do have a say-so, so we went around and talked to all the renters. They were thrown out. I didn't know that they don't have a say-so. Some of them live there up to 7 years. The owners of the property don't even know what the property looks like unless they've got pictures of it. They've never been there. So that part was a little bit up in the air. As I go by and talk to people, I notice that some of their fears was, what happens if Solo America leaves? Then what? And in that respect, that's a worry. Another big worry of most of us, is Mr. Abbott owns the next 2 properties adjacent to the zoning application properties, and the property across the street. If he can get this rezoned, I think the other 3 is a shoe-in. So now what have we got? We got 5 properties there with cars going in and out and people going in and out, and I think most of us will say that the sad part about it is we bought into a real nice, I think, residential area. Of course, some people think that the properties up there is not all that great, but we do. We think it's a real nice area. No mobile homes, as you said in the introduction. There's no mobile homes up there. We don't. If somebody's yard or whatever, like we had a Thunderbird parked in the yard, and we got rid of that real quick. But I think we feel offended that what we bought, what we nurtured, what we come up with, and what we want to preserve is a nice, quiet little residential neighborhood. And someone coming down out of the high rent district and putting up 5 houses and saying, there, now I want to rezone them, and if you don't like it, tough luck. We don't adhere to that sort of thinking. We live there, we own property, we want it to be left residential, and that's all we ask. Thank you.
Thank you. Tom Young? Yes. Okay, I'm sorry, Mr. Young. Mepet Bonnie Clay? Clay Bonnie?
Thank you, Chairman, Board of Supervisors. I am not, I'll tell you right now, I am not a resident here of Mohave County.
Would you please identify your name and your
My
address,
name is
please?
Mepet Bonnie Clay. I live at 27809 South Frame Avenue in Baus, and that is in La Paz County. I am here on behalf of my son, who attends the Solo of America program. I drive 250 miles twice a week in order for him to attend the program because he's 33. Since he turned 18, I tried programs in Yuma, Lake Havasu, Blythe, all up and down the area, and because of his unique needs, he was never successful anywhere. In the last 3 years that he's attended this program, he has blossomed and become part of a community that has made his life much more than it ever would have been. And I'm not here to say, well, this program could not have been helping him if it were not where it is. But the second role I play in my adult life is I am a special education teacher for students age 14 through 21, and for the last 13 years I've taught in Parker. And I understand through my training and my working with young people, the three most important qualities of a program must start with communication, how we teach our young people to communicate and that we're willing to communicate with them. Number two, to have high expectations that they can be part of the community, that they are valuable members. And the third and most important is environment. And we change our environment based on the needs of special needs people. Some people can make these great gains in environments that are commercialized, that are in industrial areas, and a lot of our people do very well. But there is a segment of population that needs the environment that is not as threatening, busy, commercial and industrial. So my point is that it's very important that this particular program for the young people that they are, or older adults, the people that they are serving, it's very important that the quality of the environment be there. And this program provides that, and especially for my son. And he has been attending the program for 3 years, and hopefully when I get things settled with my mother who is elderly, I will be moving to Kingman and I will be part of this community because I like Kingman. It's a wonderful place. Thank you for hearing me.
Thank you, ma'am. And we do understand that it is a very good program. Thank you.
It is.
Dina Martinez?
Good morning. My name is Dina Martinez. I live at 1611 College Drive, Kingman, Arizona, 86409. I live directly across the school, or whatever, the daycare center, whatever they call it. And I agree with this lady, it's a great thing that they're doing. The thing is that they outgrew their space, you know. It was good, and they've been there about 10 years. I've been at my house 15 years, so there was nothing there when I moved in my house. And they were doing great, but I think it expanded too much. I think it's too much. They need a bigger space or something. And there's where all the cars, the traffic, all that comes in, because they outgrew their space, I think. So that's all I have to say, you know. As far as the program, it's a fine program, you know, but I get everything. from my front door, I look into their front door, so. And I don't mind, all the people that are getting taught there and all that. It's just the traffic is unbelievable. And when they tell you there's 3 or 4 cars parked there at a time, no, there's always more than that. And they just don't have nowhere to park, Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Martinez. Debbie Foddy?
My name's Debbie Fodge. I live at 4749 North College Circle. And I just want to say, I agree with Martinez that the parking's terrible. And we were never told that that was a daycare there. And when we bought the place, when we first came here to Kingman, there was hardly any traffic there, when we come to look for our place. And now there's all kinds of traffic. And they outgrew it, like she said. They need a place for them to park. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
I have a question over, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Supervisor Johnson?
How long have you been there now, ma'am? Have you lived on College?
We've been there now a year.
Oh, you've only been on College a year?
Mm-hmm.
And so the traffic has gotten that much worse from the time you moved in until?
Yes. Sometimes you just barely have to creep out to see if there's oncoming traffic just to get out of our place.
So it's like
Onto
there
the
was hardly
road
any traffic, and within a year, when you first got there was nobody at that facility?
Yeah, when
and
we
then-
come to see the place, there wasn't hardly any traffic.
Thank you.
And it happened to be on a weekend.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. Linda Young?
Good morning. My name is Linda Young. I live at 4755 North College Circle, Kingman, Arizona, 86409. I'm really feeling extremely frustrated right now. I think you all received a picture in your packet, an overview of the parking situation there, where the cars would be parked out on College and interfere with trying to get out, because it's on a circle, or the road circles, I should say, and that causes one of the major problems with getting out. Also, the parking. We stand there at our home and look out the window, and it looks like a parking lot down there, a car sales lot. If I wanted to see that, I would have moved off of Stockton Road. It's very discouraging. We weren't told. We've lived there approximately 1 year. In the 1 year we've been there, we've seen an increase in traffic also. It's become very busy. Now, I will say this, since the zoning signs have gone up, they are doing things to try to cut back on the traffic. They've quit parking cars there. I have to say that they're trying to go along with stuff, but I really feel like it's when you have a little kid and he wants something for Christmas real special. He keeps that room clean and he does everything he's supposed to do. And then once he gets what he wants for Christmas, it goes back to the same old, same old. And I really feel that's the way it's going to be. This is my personal opinion, though. I have so many things that I just want to say. As far as what they're doing, I understand that totally. I worked in a psych ward for 3 years. I worked for a psychiatrist for 4 years. I know what that is. I have a grandchild in the same situation. But the problem is, it's not about what they're doing. It's the fact that we have homeowners that do not want a business coming in. And it's just that simple. We have a nice area. We're proud of Mohave County. We haven't lived here that long, but we're proud of it, and we want to keep that pride in it. We want our residential area that we chose and thought was a nice, quiet area. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. And thank you for your pride in Mohave County. Jan Sidwell?
Good morning. My name is Jan Sidwell, and I'm the owner of 4759 College Circle. It's on the north end at the end of a cul-de-sac, and I want to emphasize cul-de-sac. I've informed each of you of my opposition to the Planning and Zoning Commission's approval to grant the rezone from R0 to R2. I believe the Disability Day Center is inappropriately located and is an extreme hazard to the single-family residential environment. A residential neighborhood with children present is not suitable for this type of operation due to the increase in traffic caused by the required number of employees, as well as the continuous drop-off and pick-up of the patrons. I ask you to reconsider this approval from the Planning and Zoning. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sidwell. Sam Simpson?
Chairman, Board of Supervisors, my name is Sam Simpson. I live on Sage Street, 86401, Kingman, Arizona. I have a daughter in the program. There's a stigma with group homes in a residential area. I drove paratransit for 15 years in Ohio. I ran into this over and over again, whether it's the R word or whatever. People are against these homes. It's not the parking. They're going to rectify the situation with the parking. They've already tried to amend this situation. They're shuttling people back and forth to their parking lot on the corner of Northern and Bank. This stigma with disabled people is crazy. It's been going on for years and years and years, and it's got to stop. They don't hurt residential areas. It was the same thing in Ohio. For 15 years, I drove paratransit. I dropped people off. I picked them up. I drove for almost a year here for the CART. The same stigma is there. Anytime there's a group home or this kind of facility set up, there's this, I don't want them in my neighborhood. I'm sorry, but it's got to end. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bill Abbott.
You know my name, you know where I live. This is one of the hardest things I've ever done.
We still need it for the record.
Yes, we still need it for the record.
My name is Bill Abbott. I live at 1603 West Jordan Ranch Road in Kingman. I was a commissioner for several years. I heard these things. I know why I never wanted to be a supervisor, because we only made recommendations. You had to make the decisions. I want to read some things to you here, and it only takes about 3.5 minutes. But statements like rezoning, the 5 properties that I own there, which I do own 5 properties within 300 feet of these properties. I don't think there's 51% against this, because I talked to several people, and none of them are against this program. I don't question what they got back as far as their petitions they sent out, but the information in the letter, there's some things in there that's correct, incorrect, and the people that I talked to will get to it. Okay, the hazards, and as far as I do not have any desire to rezone these two houses. I'm only doing it because after 10 years, someone, and I can't even get a name as to who, come along and said, Steve, you're in the wrong location, you're in the wrong zoning, you're going to have to shut down immediately. So we're sort of like a catch-21 here, and I feel like, I think every one of you people, because I've known and heard your thing, you talk about government involvement, bigger government, someone after 10 years, he's been in business 15 or 16, are saying, no, you can't be here. I would like to explain why we are requesting this rezoning. I would like to read what I have to say to make sure it is said correctly. Approximately 5 months ago, Steve, the executive director of Solo, called me and told me they want to shut him down. He was told he should immediately cease to exist. Steve was extremely emotional, I would say pretty much in tears. I couldn't see him. He was concerned about the people with the intellectual disabilities and their families that is working with him. Mr. Watson, can I proceed? I asked what started this after doing what Sola done for over 10 years. I asked, have you been doing something different? His answer was no, we are doing the same as we have for the last 10 years here. Steve told me that he had filled out a normal exemption paper. A few days later after that, his wife received a phone call that this location with the present zoning was not eligible for the exemption because no one lived in these houses. After being in the same location for 10 years, Steve has never had one complaint from anyone. I suggested to Steve we go to P&Z, which is Development Services, and check this out. After several meetings with Development Services, we were told the type of zoning that is allowed in the residential area that fits what Solo is doing is what we've requested. The definition in R2, Section 9 for this requirement reads, an adult health care service, a program that provides planning, care, supervision, and activities, personal care, personal living skills, training, meals, and health monitoring in a group setting during a portion of a continuous 24-hour period. Again, Solo has been offering this service and is there Monday through Friday, closed on Saturday and Sunday. Steve tells me he's tried being in another area and it just don't work. Home setting is essential. They do not want to make any changes to what they've been doing. I know from past experience that this is an unusual request, and when zoning notices are posted, it's not unusual for neighbors to do what this one neighbor has done. I quote from his letter, Solo needs to be in a commercial zoning, and if this zoning change is made, the family atmosphere and the low volume of traffic will change. He is saying in his letter, this is a low volume traffic area, not what you've heard this morning about. It's a cul-de-sac. There's no traffic up and down through there except the people that live there. And there's 6 or 7 houses. He is saying in his letter that this is a low volume area. He's also saying that Steve Solo needs to be in a commercial zoning. In the 10 years in this location, Solo never had a complaint again. I do not think it's right for the neighbor to be writing letters telling other people what type of zoning Solo should be in and telling them that the traffic will change, when Solo will not be making any changes except maybe to downsize. Again, this is Development Services' job, and they have told us what is allowed in this area and what they've recommended. One of the neighbors I have known for years who would not sign this petition called me and told me why were we changing the zoning. I explained to him the only reason we were requesting the change was allow Solo to stay where they are. He said that makes sense. He had no problem with Solo being there, and he knew what he was being told was untrue. He was told if this zoning was changed, There will be things like 7-Eleven going in on the vacant lots in this area, and traffic will be worse than living near a zoo. I fully understand how rumors get started, just like making the statement, I may want to change those 5. I have no desire to change the 5. I don't even want to change the 2, except to help Steve. I spoke with others that signed the petition and explained to them why we needed the change, and it will not be commercial. Solo will be there doing what they've done. Again, not one of them has a problem with Steve staying there. I have just one example. I know a young couple with 3 children. The oldest is around 12 years old. She was born blind and is very autistic. I told them about Solo about 2 years ago, and their daughter has been in that program for a little over 2 years, and her mother says they are very happy with it. Prior to being in this program, every time she was taken out of her house, she literally clung to her mom, her dad, or her grandma. These were the 3 people that cared for her. She would not let go of them. Now her mom tells me she is picked up in front of their house by a bus with assistance, goes to school with other children, and is a very happy little girl most of the time. Solo, as I see it, works with people that society does not want to deal with. This is not a business that pays well. You have to love working with this type of people, or you wouldn't be doing it. I don't like to share personal things, but I'm going to. They had problem financially when they moved in there to do and pay for the rent. I reduced the rent. I haven't changed the rent 1 penny in 10 years. I go by there probably once a week, and I go by there because I go to church right down the street. I see that neighborhood. You look at any house I have, there's no weeds, they're clean, they're neat, and I purposely put 6 big rocks about this height on the corner of College Circle and College Drive, and there, I stepped it off this morning. There's about 40 feet there that you can't even park. Plus there's a drainage that goes into a culvert, and you'd be in a ditch that's 2.5, 3 feet deep if you tried to park. So it is being so over-exaggerated with pulling up there and wanting to get out on College Drive. There is one thing. The college is growing. That is the main road for the college. So has the traffic increased? Yes, it has. It has nothing to do with Solo. So, is there any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Abbott. Questions?
Is the public hearing over?
Not yet.
Oh, yeah.
I have one question, if I may.
Of Mr. Abbott?
Yes. Sir, I see that the planning and zoning recommended some improvements to the parking situation. Do you have any ideas how you're going to do that?
Yeah, Supervisor Moss, this is in a unique place in the sense that it's on the corner. The 4765 is larger than the other lots. There's room for parking in the back on both of these houses. And by the way, since this started a few months ago, the sheriff was sent over to check out the parking, and they have stopped by there a couple of times, and Steve can tell you that. He's just relayed to me. They said every parking that is done there is legal. So this is...
Thank you, Mr. Abbott.
I think I've answered the questions.
Can I
Thank you.
confirm, Mr.
One more?
Chairman?
Sure.
So in other words, along the back of both properties, there's sufficient parking or space to put the parking in the back so it wouldn't congest the street? Is my understanding?
From what I know right now, and this wouldn't go through unless we give them parking that the county requires. And I would greatly encourage you, if you have any problem approving this, make a stipulation on it that it is only for Solo and the time they're there. I don't care. I have no desire for this to be changed from the zoning it is.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Abbott. Okay, is there anyone in the audience wishing to speak to this item? Item number 38. Sir? Yes, ma'am. Please state your name and
Good morning.
address.
Supervisors. My name is Kathy Murphy. I live at 2330 or 3220 Bighorn Drive at Stagecoach Trails, which is in Supervisor Moss's district. I got through listening to the heart-rending stories of all these people with children or adult children who are participating in this. There's a number of reasons why people become disabled as they're adults, and in this area where there is a prison by, a number of the inmates are also mentally disabled for one reason or another. Some are born that way, but the borderline intellect, about 50% of them end up in prison because they're played by society, okay?
Ma'am,
And if
we need to be
those
speaking
children-
this morning as to the issue on Solo on item number 38.
Okay, that issue.
Not the cultural issue.
I know, but are the individuals in a safe spot when the people around them don't want them? Are they going to be safe? Will they be protected from others who reject them? How are you going to do that? Can you rezone a different area? Can you force a person to move out? If someone wants this person to leave, they have to provide him, they have to give him just compensation. They have to buy his land out if they're trying to run him out. They have to pay for it, or else they can't do that. If they're going to be causing problems and hassling him, it's going to be a safety issue for all those developmentally disabled. That's all that's the only thing I want to say.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone that has not signed up that would like to speak to this issue that has not spoken yet? Okay, I will recognize Mr. Abbott. We're still in the public hearing.
My name is Bill Abbott. These people are very harmless. They are the kind of people that society don't want to deal with.
Thank you, Mr. Abbott. Yes, sir.
My name is Tom Young. At no point did anyone ever criticize what's going on down there. We have never criticized the people, that's the students down there. In fact, every time somebody gets up to speak, last meeting and some of this meeting, we commend what's going on down there. That's not the problem. It never was the problem.
We understand that, sir.
And as far as the letter that was sent out, and as far as talking to people, I was there and talked to every one of them. We didn't misrepresent anybody. We didn't anything. We didn't bold-faced lie to people and say, here, sign this on my word. I don't know where he gets that. The only thing about that letter that was said that was discriminatory, my wife put in there that they have been operating for 10 years illegally. Now, I didn't like that that particular thing either, but the truth is they should have had a license for that 10 years ago, I think, and we thought. So that's the only thing in there that says anything about that. But as far as us going around the neighborhood badgering Solo America, no, we did not. And as far as the rezoning goes, I'd like to speak on that for a moment. All I'm saying, and I stood up here and said, was if the 2 passes, what would cause the other 3 not to? I mean, if I own 2 properties here and I have a filling station that's doing well, I'm collecting rent and doing fine, then why not go for the other one? That's all I'm saying.
Okay, thank you, sir.
I have a question.
Thank you, sir.
I have a question.
We have a question,
Yes.
Supervisor Brotherton?
Yes. Mr. Little, I've been over in the neighborhood since you came and talked to us several times. And 2 houses up the cul-de-sac there, 2 or 3, there's about 5 cars. Some of them parked in the front yard, some of them in the driveway, out in the street. The next one to it, there were 5 cars parked there at one time. One of them looks like it's disabled in that cul-de-sac there. Do you not have any objection to that?
I don't know what you're talking about. The people that live right behind the first house that's
No,
sold.
I'm talking about in the cul-de-sac.
Right.
I just drove around the cul-de-sac.
Well, it would be right behind because the house is facing this way, her house is facing this way. Yes, her husband's a collector. You probably went by on a Saturday when he pulls them out and waxes them and so on. But the truth is, there's only 3 cars. The other 2 is always in the garage. And as far as the other 5, I'm not familiar with
I've been
that.
there during the week and then on weekends also. The pride in ownership that your wife talked about does not seem to be shared by everyone in that cul-de-sac. I didn't see a lot of vehicles parked around this subject property, but that's all I had. I just wanted to ask.
Okay, let me answer to that. For example, the very day that we come and seen you was on a Tuesday, I think, and I don't know the dates. I'm sorry, I should have had that information. The very day we came to see you, my wife and I counted 20 cars parked all over the place. Gary said, I'm going to have to stop by that place and take a look at it. When we came home, we said, oh, Christ, there's 3 cars parked there. As far as not being able to see up the road anymore, since the rezoning sign went up, that's right, they haven't been there. Now, after it goes through the Planning and Zoning Board, I'm sure they won't be there, rocks or no, because it would block the view, and they said that's one of the things that they're considering. So as far as that is, I think that problem is solved if it stays solved. But it's as far as parking in back, you really only get 2 cars back there unless they're blocked in, and I don't know if there's a rule against that or not.
Okay.
But I did want to say, as far as Solo of America goes, we had nothing to say negative about that. We talked to all these people. We never had anything negative to say that. In fact, everybody agrees. We love what they're doing. They're great. We just don't like where they're doing it. And
Thank
we
you,
have
sir.
nothing against those people at all. Thank you.
And thank you. Okay, at this point, we've had everyone in the audience the opportunity to speak to this issue. We're still in the public hearing mode. At this point, I think we've qualified for the public hearing. I will close the public hearing and
Mr. Chairman, can I ask Ms. Ballard some questions?
certainly. Motion for discussion, possibly?
I move to discuss.
Second.
We have motion, discussion for discussion. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you. Supervisor Johnson.
10 years ago, did this require a permit for this type of activity?
Mr. Johnson, members of the board, 10 years ago, this particular establishment or this particular activity located on this particular piece of property would have required a permit. It also would have required a rezone.
I guess that's why we're here. I don't think it has anything to do with, like the people said, over who's living there. If a rezone goes through for this type of a business, can it be limited to X amount of people or X amount of patients or X amount of clientele or not? Once it's rezoned.
Mr. Johnson, members of the board, for reasons such as traffic or health, safety issues, yes, the number of persons can be limited. At present time, their physical facilities also limit them.
Is there a way that, obviously for 9 years, there didn't seem to be a problem with, maybe they've expanded their operation, I have no idea. But I know some homes are limited to 5 people, 10 people, whatever they do, but it sounds like they're running a daycare where they could run larger classes, I don't know. But there's really no way to address the busyness of this facility that you can think of that we have the power to do?
Mr. Johnson, members of the board, for a reason, the board does have the ability to limit the number of persons in the facility. Now, the type of facility they are running right now, they will occasionally have more than 10 persons in one or the other two of the 2 homes. For that reason, it requires a rezone. if they were to keep their number of persons involved in the program down to less than 10 at any one given time in each of the houses, then a zoning use permit is available to them. If they keep it less than 4, then all they need to do is come in and get an administrative permit as a home occupation. Those are the different classes we have. Specifically, we were looking at the rezone because of the fact that they were going to exceed that 10-person per structure or per house limit.
What are they, this is a day use now, right? This is where you come and receive training or during the daytime help?
Yes.
It's not an
Yes.
overnight facility.
No, it would not be an overnight facility.
So they could have 10 people, just, if they have 2-hour classes or whatever they have, they could have 10, 10, 10, they could have whatever. So it could obviously be more than 10 people in one day.
The purpose of the rezone would be to allow more than 10 people at any one given time. Our permitting process does not get into who is there. So yes, an individual could come in the morning, leave in the afternoon, and another person could come in the afternoon and, in essence, take the morning person's spot. We do not get into that. It's the total number of people who are there at any one given time. And with this particular rezone, we would leave that decision and that monitoring up to the state. We would not get involved in that.
All right, I guess the problem I have is that we're here today because these people didn't do their job 10 years ago. Now, the facility that's there has a great reputation from everything I've heard and does a great service. It kind of puts us in a bind because do we reward bad behavior for somebody who didn't do the things that were there and now 10 years later wants us to give them a pass on it? I guess that's where I'm at.
Mr. Chairman.
Guess I'll leave it up to the people whose district it's in.
Mr.
Thank
Chairman.
you, Supervisor Johnson. Supervisor Moss.
When it comes to the population of this facility, that is regulated by state law, is it not?
Mr. Moss, members of the board, there would be actually, right, depending on what kind of an entitlement they have from Mohave County, it would either be both the county and the state. If the county, if they had a particular entitlement such as this rezone that allowed them to keep an unlimited number under the county's purview, then the state would regulate.
Because the state would have authority over this type of facility when it comes to the number of people they serve and how they serve them and the time periods. I'm not sure if it's square footage based or what, but there is an upwards limit imposed by state law if the county removed its limitation.
Mr. Moss, members of the board, that's correct. The state has a resource-based formula that they use in limitation.
I guess, Mr. Chairman, if I ask one more, I guess
Certainly.
the only problem with that is the difference if it's on a thorough street, a through street, then the traffic's not quite as bad if you're changing 10 people every 2 hours. I guess that would be the problem with the neighborhood, I would imagine.
Yeah. And
Thank you, Supervisor Johnson. Supervisor Moss.
one thing, I heard a reference earlier I wanted to follow through mentioning that MCC has somewhat expanded their services in that area, and that may be the cause of traffic. Is that accurate? Or is there anything to that, or did I misunderstand?
Mr. Moss, members of the board, I'm not familiar with that claim. I know the community college has been expanding some of their services, which may be affecting traffic on College Road itself, but I think, this is a cul-de-sac off of College. So activities at the college should not be affecting the cul-de-sac in any way.
Thank you, Ms. Ballard. Any further questions for Ms. Ballard? Thank you, Ms. Ballard. Well, we confront a pretty delicate issue, one which involves a company that is providing a service to an underprivileged portion of our society and doing an excellent job. On the other hand, there seems to be a problem with the number of vehicles and the people numbers. It's been noted that the commission approved by a vote of 6-2, the added requirement of parking to be approved as a daycare center. I have a question for Ms. Ballard. I don't know the limits or the parameters in which a daycare center would have parking. Could you inform the board, please?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, the Mohave County zoning ordinance has a list of land uses for which zoning standards apply. It doesn't cover all the uses, and one of the uses it does not cover is adult daycare facilities. The commission during the public hearing and the discussion that followed, the commission asked the department what was the nearest category that was listed with parking standards. And we gave them child daycare centers. It's one space for every 2 employees, plus 1 space for each 5. In this case, it would be clients. The facility is designed to accommodate.
Okay, I've got a question. It was how many, 1 vehicle per 2
employees, plus 1 space. In this case, it says each 5 children, and we would replace that with 5 clients or 5 occupants.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Supervisor Mott.
I'm still confused about the cul-de-sac concept because I'm looking at these maps and I see how East College Circle is indeed a cul-de-sac, and that's borders one side of the property.
Yes.
But it looks like both properties face North College Drive, and on the maps we've been provided, that seems to continuously loop around and intersects with places like East Packard Avenue and things of that nature. So when it comes to, North College Drive is not a cul-de-sac that we're talking about. It's East College Circle, is that correct?
Mr. Moss, members of the board, that is correct.
So the street which fronts both properties is North College Drive, and that is not a cul-de-sac.
Mr. Moss, members of the board, that is correct.
And so when I heard a couple folks out there reference that the community college traffic, which is expanding, may have something to do with the number of vehicles going up and down the road, that actually may be correct, at least I'm assuming, since it's on a street called College Drive.
Mr. Moss and members of the board, additional activities at Mohave Community College could very well result in additional traffic on College Drive.
The house on the corner faces.
Right, and these other two don't.
I have a question of Ms. Ballard.
Supervisor Johnson.
Do we have anywhere, I mean, sounds like the board is looking at trying to make some accommodations here. You know, to me, we're just rewarding bad behavior by not following the rules, and these people in the community, while they support the facility, they now have a chance to actually have a voice if they want this kind of a facility in their neighborhood, and it looks like they don't. Is it possible that the county has a way to say you have a rezone for 2 years to look for another location, or not?
Mr. Johnson, members of the board, and I do invite Mr. Ekstrom to correct me if I'm wrong, but rezone goes with the properties, and once vested or once the property owner has developed a rezoned property for the purpose and use for which it was intended and the purpose and use for which it was rezoned, that zoning vest, that individual, whoever owns the property, whether it was the original applicant or a successor, has full rights of that zone. There are some allowances for conditional zoning, but that just puts the limits on some of the uses. The zone itself stays in place and runs with the property.
Thank you.
Ms. Ballard, would that preclude the ability for us to say, for example, we could approve the rezone today for 1 year if the parking situation were to be addressed and then rehear it in a year? Is that a possibility?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, My answer to that would be no, that, I do not see that as a possibility here again, because once the property is developed for the purpose for which it was rezoned, that zoning vests, it becomes a right that the property owner receives. Now, the Mohave County zoning ordinance does say in it that a site plan will be submitted to Development Services prior to the establishment of the use. And in that site plan, they do have to show us that they can meet the parking standards that the Board, in this case, the parking standards that the Board of Supervisors will set. In addition, they're going to have to show us not just Development Services, but Public Works as well, how the traffic will enter the property and how that traffic will be leaving the property. And that is the, right now as I look at it, that's the best available tool to make sure that they follow what the board sets as conditions in the rezone.
Thank you, Ms. Ballard. Any further questions? There being no further questions, then of Ms. Ballard, I'd like to propose a motion to approve the rezone with the condition of the added requirements of the parking be approved as a daycare center.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Questions? Supervisor Brotherton?
Yes, I do have a question. And I'll have to ask Mr. Abbott. Can I
Certainly.
ask Mr.
Certainly.
Okay. Has there been some provision already done for the parking? Because now I noticed when I drove by there, the house that's right on the corner, there is quite a large area back behind the house, or actually at the side of the house, that is fenced off back there. How many vehicles do you suppose could be parked in that area?
Mr. Chairman, Board, I don't know. We haven't gone that far. We feel, from what we've laid out there, that if we did nothing, we just allowed cars to park along College Drive and along College Circle, and in the driveways, we will meet that requirement. However, we want to exceed it and make parking behind both 4765 and 4769, so there's absolutely no problem. So
Right. Well,
that's
I noticed
the
that.
best I could explain it, but I don't think it answers your question. I've not done any work on it
Yeah.
to answer your question.
Okay, it's
We will
hard-
have to, I understand, from what come from the Planning and Zoning Commissioners, if it's presented to you and if you approve it as they recommended it to you.
Thank you, Mr. Abbott. I noticed that the house next to it, there's 3 van-type vehicles, which I suppose belongs to the company, parked very neatly there, and they all fit in that driveway of the house behind the one that's on the corner. And so most of those people do not drive, I don't think. Probably none of the patients drive, so they're just being dropped off there. Is that correct?
I think you should have asked Steve that question about the vans, because he knows how he handles those vans. I don't.
Okay, well, I'm sure that they, can you answer that question for me?
If you like. Please come to the podium, sir.
Yes, we have 6 vans. We pick up everybody every morning with the exception of very few that have whatever problem getting ready or whatever. But we do about 5,600 different transportations that we contract with the state.
Okay, okay, that's what I wondered. Those vans then
Yeah,
belong to you,
yeah.
and they were parked on the property behind. And now I noticed that you've got a big area back behind the one on the corner of the cul-de-sac, and that could be additional parking also.
Yes, we just, I think, some fence work, and we can accommodate.
And how many
more
employees do you have now?
Oh, gosh, I mean, that's a hard question to answer because we do in-home community stuff. We have about 35 employees. But very few of them are, there we run a ratio of 1 to 4 clients. And if we cut back to 16, That would mean that we would have 4 people there to service their needs and the management necessary.
Okay.
We may have to move our administration out of there. That would be okay. One more thing I wanted to mention, just our numbers are regulated by the state.
Okay.
Our maximum is 20.
Okay, if you'll hang on just a minute, sir. Supervisor Angus?
So I guess the piece I was missing, I think I just heard. So you do your administration out of this building. That's where all the traffic is coming from. So the people who do in-home health, they come to these homes.
That's been one of our difficulties.
See, so that's, we're talking about, so it's a full-fledged business, not just a daycare. So that's how I see Supervisor Johnson was talking about operating without a license for all these years. And so now I kind of understand where all this traffic, because I was thinking, okay, you have the vans and then you just have employees. But now I'm hearing that you have other employees who do home health who come and they get their pay and they check in and whatever. So it's a full-fledged operational business, not just sort of a daycare.
It's grown quite a bit. We had 2 clients to begin with.
Right. So now it all
when I
makes sense.
requested, licensing, they said that I was fine. Unfortunately, I didn't know about zoning. And I'd never run into it before in all the years since 1985. And nobody ever mentioned it. I finally read a brochure. It was written in 07 that said I should get zoning. I started in 02. So it isn't one of those things that anybody ever brought up. There are other agencies out there in houses just like this without proper zoning.
Here in Mohave County?
We're not the only ones.
Here in Mohave County?
Absolutely.
Yeah, Mr.
So-
Chair,
Supervisor Johnson?
I guess Supervisor Angus got it right. That's the problem I think we're having here is if this is one of the problems, if this is a daycare facility and handles those people, when Supervisor Brotherton's saying there's 6 vans there, and what I understand, a lot of people drop their people off. If the board goes ahead and authorizes a daycare, then it should be for the daycare and the daycare only. I mean, and I think all parking should be off-street. I mean, this is not a commercial where you can use the street because that street belongs to the residents. It doesn't belong to these people to bark up and down them. They have to have a complete off-street parking. But that's the problem I think we're facing now is their business versus a daycare.
Correction, Mr. Johnson, I saw 3 van-type vehicles that were parked there, not 6.
Well, but
I've
there are
never
6
seen,
altogether.
I've never seen more than about 4 vehicles there, and I've been there several different times since they came and talked to us.
And that, is there something with
Has
the
anybody
state?
here on the board driven by that property besides me? Have
No.
anybody ever gone and inspected it or looked at it?
I've driven by it, but not inspected it.
When we're talking about state programs and things too that the gentleman's talking about, he administers. I mean, that's we're getting very far afield from a daycare use,
Well, all we're here to do is
Right.
address the zoning issue.
but if we've had 10 years of violations, and now we find out that besides just the daycare, they're running a full-fledged business out of there, so.
Well, I think he's trying to correct an error.
I'll recommend this. I'll withdraw my motion, then, original motion, and in lieu of that motion, would recommend that we table this item for a total of 2 meetings in order to make those determinations that we have new questions on. That is the daycare operation, the overall operation, and to get a more thorough understanding. There could be many ways to solve this problem other than what we're trying to attempt here. So I
And
think
I'll withdraw my second.
further investigation may warrant itself then to table the motion for 2 meetings.
Second.
Okay, you will have to withdraw your second original.
I did. I
Okay.
withdraw my second,
All right.
and I
We have a
Excuse me,
motion and a
Chairman
second
Watson?
then.
Would that be then on the December 8th meeting?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
And I will, in the meantime, add myself to the list of supervisors who have driven past the property.
Okay. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, we have a motion then to table it until December 6th, is that correct? December 8th, okay. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carried. Item will be tabled and investigated further. Item number 39, we'll open the public hearing for the discussion, possible action for the adoption, Board of Resolution number 213-160, a zoning use permit on assessor's parcel number 324-22-677A and 640A for an industrial gas filling and distribution facility in a C2 general commercial zone in the Kingman vicinity, west side of Lomita, between Northern and Butler. I have no one signed up for this public hearing, although I will let anyone from the audience at this point to address it. Okay, there being no one to address this item, we'll close this public hearing. And motion for?
I move to approve item 39 of the agenda, subject to the requirement that Unisource requires a 10-foot setback.
We have a motion. I'll second the motion. Any further discussion? There being none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, motion carried.
Excuse me, Chairman Watson, I had a wrong date on that item 38. It should be December 2nd, not
December
the
2nd,
8th.
so noted, December 2nd. Okay, now to our regular agenda. Item number 40, discussion, possible action in the matter of the Mexican gray wolf recovery program, invoking the coordinating agency status and authorizing the chairman to sign a letter to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, demanding recognition as a status in the meeting and demanding a response. Motion for discussion.
Second.
Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carried. Supervisor Angus, did you want to address this?
No,
comment?
I don't have any comment. It's about, as long as we are demanding and not asking or begging, I'm okay with it.
Okay. Any further clarification, discussion? There being none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, motion carried. Item number 41. Discussion, possible action regarding the discussion of cost estimates for the proposed medical examiner building of the county morgue, approval of the construction of the new building, and a renovation of an existing building or lease a building, and identify a source of funding for that project. And number 2, approve of establishing a medical examiner services and staff as a department.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion for discussion of
We
item
have-
41.
We have a motion. I'll second that motion. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
If I could, Mr. Chairman?
Supervisor Moss.
It's, after some coordinating some calendars, myself, Mr. Hepler, a member of his staff, and are going to go to Lake Havasu this afternoon at 3 p.m. to meet with the Lake Havasu Regional Medical Centers principal actors in order to discuss this in more detail. They have expressed an interest. They want to go through some of the more particulars data that Mr. Hepler's OMB office has at their fingertips. And so I believe in light of that, this should be continued for at least another 2 weeks and preferably 2 meetings, because I believe in my experience as a lawyer negotiating some of these things or discussing these things, one meeting leads to another as questions build upon questions sometimes, especially if people are doing their job properly.
Okay, so are you entertaining a motion then to table this item and then till December the 2nd? Is that?
I am. I move that we table this item until December 2nd.
Okay, I'll second that motion.
I have a question.
Supervisor Johnson.
Might be of Mr. Hepler if he's here. Oh, there he is.
No, there he is. I was looking on that side.
I guess you have too. The questions I have, Mr. Hepler, are, have you done any research to see how many coroner's offices are held in hospitals?
to my knowledge, Supervisor Watson, or Chairman Watson, Supervisor Johnson, in Arizona, to my knowledge, no. Most of them have standalone morgues.
I think that's where we're, I appreciate Supervisor Moss going to all this trouble to meet with these people. I don't think they can, handle the volume of work that's there, nor, I think we have to kind of get a conflict of interest too when the coroner's responsible if there is any malpractice from the hospital. Any given time, do you know, Mr. Hepler, how many bodies we store at any one given time, just an average?
It's usually, I think on the weekends sometimes. I was down there about a month ago, and she had roughly 12 bodies in the refrigerated unit. And she has 2 refrigerated units. Sometimes she has bodies that come in that are decomposed, and they're not very fragrant, and you have to put them in a separate area. So.
And I think that's the problem we're going to face is the space and that sort of thing, especially with the entrances where they go. But, if the board wants to continue it on, I just don't know that looking at hospitals is going to be a viable solution.
Viable endeavor.
Yeah. If I could, Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Moss.
I share Supervisor Johnson's concerns. On the other hand, as my understanding is that these medical facilities, you frequently own multiple buildings, some of which are not being used. And so if I were the hospital administrator, I would not want it in my main building. It doesn't mean that I wouldn't want it as part of the program. So, and I really think it's something that we need to address with the medical centers directly to let them make the decision, or at least consider it, and engage in discussion with us, because it may be of potential benefit to the taxpayers. It may not be. It may not work out. But I don't think a month is all that critical, considering the contract isn't up until sometime in 2015.
Thank you, Supervisor Moss.
Yeah, I guess the only thing I know that we have to move at some point if we're going to build, because it's going to take us a while to get a building.
Any further questions? There being none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, motion carried. Item will be brought back on December the 2nd. Item number 42, discussion, possible action, approve the appointment of Judy Selberg as the District 5 Private Sector Representative to the Mohave La Paz Local Workforce Investment Board, replacing Don Clark as recommended by the Mohave La Paz Local Workforce Investment Board for the term ending December 31st, 2016.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the appointment of Judy Selberg as the District 5 Private Sector Representative to the Mohave La Paz Local Workforce Investment Board.
Second.
We have a motion and a second from Supervisor Johnson. Any further discussion? There being none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carried. Item number 43, sitting as the Board of Equalization. Discussion, possible action, approve the Board of Equalization hearing officers' recommendations regarding petitions for review of notice for change in 2014 and the petition for proposed correction for tax year 2013, parcel number 2006-11-033. This was heard on October 30th, 2013.
Motion approved.
We have a motion for approval
Second.
and a second from Supervisor Angus. Any further discussion? There being none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carried. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for your attendance today.